Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Corsair 900D Elite Build Log Part 3. We're going to be filling the loop in this video, and so what we got here are some coolants. We're going to be using Mayhem's X1 UV Blue coolant. So with this coolant, we're going to have to make a premix. So right now, it comes as a concentrate in this little bottle, and so what I got here are some two 1-liter bottles of Mayhem's Ultra Pure H2O, which we're going to be mixing it. And we also have the little syringe, which I will be using to fill the loop. So first what we're going to do is go ahead and open up the Mayhem's Ultra Pure H2O. These all come with a child safety cap, so you don't have to worry about any of your children opening these bottles and drinking them. So we're going to go ahead and pour it into this little Tupperware bowl. Now I use this bowl just to mix all the coolant in one place, and so I could easily just suck the fluid from this container into my syringe and then put it in the loop. It just makes it a lot easier for me, and it's something that I like to do, and it's very cheap to buy one of these little Tupperware bowls. It's like a couple bucks, and I could just keep usually when I do a new fluid, I'll buy a new bowl just because it's so cheap and it's clean. So I just generally do that. So then what we're also going to do is then just throw half of the Mayhem's X1 UV Blue concentrate into the bowl. Now this little 250 milliliter bottle will make 2 liters of coolant. So that's why I brought two 1 liters of Ultra Pure, just in case I needed the extra liter to maybe fill up the loop. This loop may use a little over 1 liter of fluid, so I just bought it just in case I needed it. So we're just going to go ahead and dump half of it into the mix, and that will create our 1.125 milliliters of liquid. So now we're ready to start filling the loop. So what I'm going to do is I've filled the syringe obviously with liquid, and we're going to just be putting it right into the reservoir. Now this is what's great about having a tube reservoir, is that it's easy to fill, it's easy to bleed the air out of the loop, and it's just easier for maintenance wise. So that's why I like using the reservoir, tube reservoir, and I think it also looks better than say a bay reservoir. I don't know, it's just my personal preference. So anyway, what we got, we have all the cables. You can see all the extensions are hooked into the graphics card and the motherboard, but they're not on the back side. I have everything disconnected from the power supply itself, and I'm also shorting the power supply with the green and the black wire so we could start our pump to push the liquid through the loop when we turn on the power supply. So I went ahead and fast forward just a little bit because I wanted to talk to you about a problem that I had, and that is I actually had a very small leak. Now this would be my first leak that I've ever had, but I'm glad that it actually happened because I want to talk to you guys about this, which is why I use a syringe, because if I didn't use a syringe, things would be much worse. So at the bottom of the reservoir, you could see the black reservoir base, and that screws into the actual acrylic tube for the reservoir. It comes in 3 parts: the base, the reservoir, and then the top. Well, when I assembled the reservoir, I didn't fully tighten it because I didn't know what position or orientation I wanted the fittings to point towards. So I didn't fully tighten it on there, and I forgot to completely tighten it when I was filling the loop. So there's a little small drip that actually started to happen, and what it would do is it would drip down the side of the base of the reservoir, and it would drip right on the pump. It didn't actually go anywhere else, and which I'm really thankful of because the power supply is right next to it. And it was just a very slight drip, and it was only noticeable about every 10 seconds or so. It would just make a little slight drip. And finally I noticed it when I was looking at it. For some reason it caught my eye when I glanced down at it, and I caught it, and it just dripped a couple drips on top of the pump top, which so it didn't hurt anything whatsoever, and that's what I'm very glad for that. But the thing that I want to point out is if I were to fill it, I had a lot of comments before saying, oh, why don't you use this like a funnel to fill your loop? And this is one of the reasons why I just do not, I don't do that, because if I were to use a funnel, the liquid would have been, the reservoir would have been filled much quicker, and the drip would have been much faster. It would have been like a stream of liquid coming out of the bottom there. And if that's over a critical component, say the power supply, and that got in there, that's really bad. And you'd basically, you'd have to hold off your build for a long time just to, make sure that it's dry and ready to go. And so that's one of the reasons why I use a syringe. I just really wanted to point that out, and I couldn't stress that enough because, it's just simple things like that that I forgot to do that, could have ruined a lot of stuff, especially if I were to use a funnel of some sort. So anyway, I got that fixed, so we're ready to move on for the rest of the loop. Okay, so we're ready to turn the pump on for the first time, but I thought I'd point something out just in case this ever happened to you and it freaked you out. So when I turned on the pump, nothing happened. As you can see, there's no fluid going down, and it was just like this little slight bubbles coming up from the outlet of the reservoir. So what you got to do if this happens is take the top of the reservoir top off. What it's doing is creating a kind of a suction in the reservoir there where there's pressure. And it's not allowing the fluid to go down into the pump, even though it's directly straight going down. So what you got to do is just take the reservoir top off, and the fluid will go down like normally. So you can see here I took the top off, and so we're gonna hit the switch and see the fluid goes down. Now what that does is it's basically kind of the effect that you have if you were to put a straw in a glass of liquid and you hold the top with your finger and you take it out, the liquid doesn't fall. Well, it's kind of the same thing here with the top on the reservoir. So once you take that off, it'll release that and the fluid will be able to be sucked in by the pump. So what we're going to do is continue to fill the reservoir and flip the switch on the pump and have it cycle through the loop. But what I wanted to talk about is I see a lot of questions pertaining to how many radiators do you need to adequately cool your loop. And that's a question that I see a lot, so I just wanted to talk about that for a while here. So just to give you a general idea, before this computer build, I had the same kind of loop orientation. I had the motherboard Mosfet block cooled, I had the CPU cooled, and two GTX 670s cooled with just a 360 millimeter radiator and a 120 millimeter radiator. So basically one 480 millimeter radiator, and that gave me really good temperatures. I think the max hit on the GPUs was about 45 degrees Celsius, and the CPU at 4.4 gigahertz was about 58 degrees Celsius. So I got really good temps with just one 480 millimeter radiator, if that kind of gives you an idea there. And the ambient temperature in my room was a good 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So already there you get really good results with just one 480 millimeter radiator. And but here I added another 4080 millimeter radiator at the bottom because of the 900D. With all the space that it has, I might as well use it. And what's one good thing, a lot of people say, oh, well, you have too many radiators, that's total overkill. But for me, and for what a lot of people I don't think realize, is that with a lot of radiator space, you have a lot of surface area there for heat dissipation. And what that allows you to do is to really run your fans at a really low RPM if you wanted to do like a silent gaming machine. Throw a bunch of radiators in there, put your you could turn your fans down half power, and you'll still get great cooling because of all that surface area from all those radiators. So that's one reason why I went with another 480 millimeter radiator. In case I wanted to run my fans slower, I could, and that would still give me great cooling capability, and I'll have a silent rig. So that's one thing I like about having a lot of radiators, is that you could run them at a much slower RPM, and even you could probably run that bottom 480 even as a passive radiator with no fans on it if you wanted to, just to dissipate some extra heat with all that surface area. So that's one thing that I like to do, is kind of go a little overboard with your radiators, just to have that extra option there available to you. Now it will mean that you will need to probably have a little more of a powerful pump to especially pump a lot of that liquid through. I don't show it in this video, but I did get that pump supercharger kind of overvolt mod, which made my pump go from 12 volts to 24 volts, and that gives me a 25% increase in flow rate and about an 18% increase in my head pressure. So that's great for something like this if you want to run a lot of radiators and you have a complex loop like this, to go ahead and go with that. Either two pumps in series or two separate loops. I like to stay in one loop, so that's kind of why I went with the 24 volt mod, and that really helped out a lot. Just make sure your pump is able to do it. Don't put a 24 volt on there without it being able to handle it, because you'll blow out the pump. But the one that I had is the PMP 450S, the Koolance pump, sorry. And so I'm able to do that. So that's just something I want to talk about. Just kind of give you guys an idea there and some extra options for you. So we're going to go ahead and continue with the build. At this point, I think I have a lot of the loop already filled, and I'm just kind of getting a lot of the bubbles out. Tilting the case front to back and side to side is a great way to get a lot of the bubbles out of the radiators that are stuck in there. And you're always going to have bubbles for a good, 2, 3, 4 days. You won't probably have all the micro bubbles out until after a week of the loop filled. But when you have micro bubbles, it's okay to run your loop, play games, whatever. Micro bubbles don't make much of a difference at all within your loop's temperature range. It's only those big air bubbles that you got to worry about. So you'll be fine running it, playing your games with the little teeny bubbles in there. Usually those are at the bottom most part of your loop, stuck to the top of the tubing. And especially when I put that 24-volt mod on my pump, it took away a lot of those air bubbles. So I was, so that's one good way of knowing that it's doing giving you better flow, is that you get seeing more air bubbles come out of your loop than before. So that's good. So we're gonna go ahead and continue to do this for a good hour or so. Just keep tilting it back and forth and turning on and off the pump to agitate the bubbles inside the loop, and that clears a lot of it out by itself. So this coolant is Mayhem's X1 UV Blue, so I thought I'd give you guys a look and see how this looks like with a cold cathode on the fluid. So we're going to go ahead and turn off the lights and give you a show. You can see it gives off a nice blue. It's actually a lot brighter than I thought it would be, and that's really nice because that's just one 12-inch UV cold cathode there, as you can see. So yeah, it looks really good. Really like that color a lot, but I think I'm gonna go non-UV for this build. But who knows, maybe I'll switch and put those cold cathodes in there because it does look pretty sweet. You can see it really glows blue when you put the cathode real close to it. So here it is, we got the whole loop filled up, it's ready to go. I kind of left it on for at least a couple hours just to make sure there's no leaks. I still kind of put a paper towel there on the power supply just in case something happens. I doubt it, but you never know. So we got the whole loop filled. What I'm going to do is do a couple of other little mods to the front, especially I'm going to stealth out the DVD drive. And there's a couple other little things here that I don't show that I've actually done since I've made the video. And what I'm going to do is actually make a whole different separate kind of fully completed build video for this computer. I'm definitely going to go over the 900D and a lot of things that I like about it that I've found having worked with it. There's your opinions change a lot from actually looking at the case and actually doing a build with it. So I like to do a whole overview view with that, as well as the completed build with the extra mods. So I'd like to thank all you guys for watching. Please comment, rate, subscribe for the next upcoming video. I'd like to thank you guys again, and we'll see you at the next video. Thanks.